Hello everyone, and welcome back to BookLove. My name's Ember. So I know in the past I said that I don't usually do a TBR list, and for those who don't know, TBR stands for to be read. So I usually don't actually write a list or kind of have some sort of official thing that I'm going to kind of plan on reading, but this year I decided to go ahead and do one. Number one, because one of my reading challenges is to read a book that is the very last one on your TBR list, and I was trying to figure out how to do that. So I decided to go ahead and make a list, and also just to share with you guys some books that I'm just kind of thinking about reading coming up here soon. Now, I do want to say that this TBR list is not set in stone. Absolutely. Very fluid, very flexible. I typically read about 60 to 75, maybe. Usually not quite 75, I haven't made it there yet. But anyway, 60 plus books a year, so I'm sure that I should be able to get through these books. But if for some reason I find something else that grabs me, or I just don't feel like reading as much, it's not like I'm going to kill myself to try to get through this list and get them all done this year. So to start with, on my TBR list, I have put Jed and the Junkyard War and its sequel, Jed and the Junkyard Rebellion. I saw these books recommended by Brandon Sanderson, who is my hands-down top favorite author. And I bought them for my kids because they are middle grade kind of series. So I'm excited to read them. They sound really interesting. Actually, I think all three of my kids have finally read them now, and they all really enjoyed them. So I'm going to be reading these two books as part of my reading challenge. There is, I think it's challenge number 8, read a duology. And I was trying to rack my mind about what duology I wanted to do, and then I thought about these, I saw them on my bookshelf, and I was like, perfect! So what I know about these from reading the back and having my kids talk a little bit about them is that Jed, he's 12 years old. His parents go missing one morning, and he kind of has to figure out what happened to them and follow the clues to solve that mystery. There is a junkyard apparently that he's going through. That's what I would assume here, and reading the cover, it does say something about being left in a junkyard. I think these are kind of like a post-apocalyptic sort of setting, but I'm not 100% sure about that, so I will be finding out more as I read them, but they did sound really interesting, and my kids have loved them, and they talk about different things from the books. So it sounds like this author has done a really great job, and I'm excited to get these read. The next thing on my list is the Maxim Ride series. So there's actually 9 books in this series. Including this one, or in addition to this one, I just counted and I can't even remember. Oh dear. Anyway, I bought these a few years back at my thrift store. Don't mind the little tag there. And I had my son, my now 14-year-old, read them, and he's loved them. I think he's read them twice. And I kept thinking I'm gonna get to those, so I'm actually going to get to these. So in these stories, the main character, her name is Max, and apparently there's a group of teenagers who had kind of experiments done on them that's given them special powers. So in the books, they're trying to figure out like why that happened, how that happened, and I'm sure explore those powers and probably become cool superheroes. So we'll find out more about that as we read it. The next on my list, and this is just the dust cover because my daughter's currently reading it, is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This is the newest Stormlight Archive book. So we bought this book when it very first came out, actually, a signed copy. I'm so excited. But my daughter paid all of her savings money so that we could get a signed copy. She was so excited. So I made a deal with her that she could read the book first. That's why she has it. But before I get into reading this book, I am going to want to read the ones leading up to it just to keep everything really fresh. I have done a review of the first book in this series called The Way of Kings with my son Gavin several years ago. If you want to watch that video, you can. It's super long. Anyway, I probably will do a new review video about the Stormlight Archives at some point, but these are really amazing books. Brandon Sanderson, top-notch author, so good. This world, the series, it's epic fantasy, so there's a lot, but the way he goes about introducing you to the story, and as you go on, like, it's really easy to get into it and just be there, absorbing it and living in this world that he's created. He's such a great author who has so many details, and everything's so rich, very character driven. His characters are just so real and just awesome. Some you love, some you hate, you know, they're just people, and it's so great. So if you haven't checked these out and you're feeling a little bit nervous about them, oh, they're totally worth your time. I highly, highly recommend them. On the very top of anything that I would recommend to people, really anything by Brandon Sanderson. I'm totally a fangirl. Anyway, so this is definitely on my list after I reread the first few books. Next on my TBR is Water for Elephants. So I have never read this book before. I know that there's a movie that came out a long time ago. I don't even know when. I have watched that movie. I don't remember a lot about it. Also, a friend of mine said this was one of her favorite books when she was younger. I know that it's set in a circus, and it has to do with the animals at the circus and some of the performers and just their different life struggles that they go through. So this should be a really interesting one to read. This is just a fiction novel set in the era of the Depression and in the setting of a circus, which I said setting a lot. Sorry about that. Next is The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, I have read this book a couple of times before. I also did another review about this book a few years back. Watch it at your own peril. But honestly, this is such a great book. I hope that when my turn comes up to choose for my book club which book to make my fellow book club members read, I might actually pick this one and save it for then. But this author, this story, it's just so good. It's amazing. This guy, Andy Weir, he is kind of a fanboy, like a super nerd, he calls himself. He loves space. He loves space exploration. And so he just started thinking in his mind, like, what can I do? Some random fake made up astronaut, you know, was put in this circumstance. How could he get out of it? How could he live? How would he solve it? And he just kept doing that and writing about it and releasing these chapters on a website or a blog post or something to his followers and his fans, and they just were gobbling it up and just hungry for more. So finally he ended up finishing a story because they all were pushing him to do it. Anyway, and then he published it and put it, I guess, for sale on Kindle or whatever, or Amazon for 99 cents because he wanted to just put it out there for free, but they wouldn't let him. Anyway, then whoosh, it just soared right up to the bestsellers list, and it has been made into a movie starring Matt Damon, which I have not seen, but I really want to. Anyway, just a really, really great book. This character, the main character named Mark, he is just the best. He's so awesome. Like, he's a smart guy, but he's so approachable. Like, he has the best sense of humor, and the way that he copes with the situation of being stranded on Mars, it's so good and it's so enjoyable, and I really, really love the humor, and I love everything about this book. My copy, I mentioned this in my other review, I bought at the thrift store, and it's actually edited. Someone, whoever the previous owner was, edited it and went and marked out all the swear words except for like 2. Anyway, so I'm probably going to buy just a regular copy that's not been censored for me or for whoever, I guess. But that just makes me chuckle that my copy is a censored edited version. Next on my list is the Tricksters books by Tamora Pierce. Now, I read the Alana books when I was young and reread them every so often just because they're really fun reads. And then I bought the series after that called The Protector of the Small, and I read that as well. And I also bought this. Now, this is Alana's daughter, but for some reason I've never gotten around to reading these. This is actually an omnibus. It includes the book Trickster's Choice and Trickster's Queen. Now, my 14-year-old son has read all of these books, the Alana ones, The Protector of the Small, and these, gosh, probably way more times than I can actually even count. But he really, really loves these. These, I think, are his favorite, and he always tries to talk to me about them, which I love that he wants to talk to me about books, but I'm always like, I don't know. And then he gets mad at me. He's like, you still haven't read those, Mom? So these are on my list this year to actually read, finally. I probably will go through and read the Alana and the Protector of the Small, and then get to this one as well, just so I'm refamiliarized with everything that's in that world and all the kind of background knowledge about the kingdom and the characters and stuff. Okay, next on my list is well, Skyward, not really. I just wanted to show you this. But Skyward number 3, working title I think is Nowhere, according to what I've seen on Brandon Sanderson's posts. But anyway, I believe it's set to come out later this year. So if Skyward 3, whatever its title ends up being, does indeed come out, that is going to shoot right to the top of my list. But these are young adult sci-fi series written by Brandon Sanderson. So good. Excellent books. I recommended these to a couple of friends and they've read them and they just absolutely love them. And these are not, science fiction isn't their go-to, like that's not really what they usually choose to read. But again, Brandon's writing, I mean, so good. His characters, like, you just get right in there, you just love them, right? Always so creative, the way he has all of his series, all of the worlds, they're so unique and special. Like, you never get sick of reading something that he's written. So Skyward, yes, very good books. I'm going to read number 3 as soon as it's out. So the next couple of books that I'm planning to read this year are on my Kindle. The first of those is called I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nilsson. I read this with my book club probably over 5 years ago, and I ended up really loving it. This is a contemporary YA, and I really thought that the writing was beautiful. I really thought that the story itself was very interesting. The 2 main characters are brother and sister twins, and it goes through just a hard portion of their life, but I loved the imagery of this book. Each of them have kind of an artistic talent, and when you're seeing their point of view in the story, it's really tainted. I don't want to say tainted, tinted by that artistic talent. And to me, it just brought up such great little visuals, and it was just such a great book. I really enjoyed the story of it and the 2 main characters as they kind of figure out the tragedy that happened and kind of work their way through it. The next book is actually the first in a trilogy, and it's called The Fire Sermon, and I saw this book several years back online and thought it sounded interesting, but not until last year did I actually get them. So the crux of the story is that everyone born has a twin. Now, one twin is kind of the best of the genes, the best of everything, and the other twin is all kind of the genetic defects and the problems and the bad health. And in this world, those people are kept completely separate. So the good twin goes and lives in a city of, you know, nice things and plenty of food, and the bad twin has to go live in little villages, rural, where they grow all the food, they do all the hard labor. And so this story is about how the bad twin decides that she doesn't want that life anymore, and she tries to break out and get away. Oh, you're finally there. Thank you. The Fire Sermon by Francesca Haig. This is a young adult dystopian. Next is the Truly Devious trilogy. I have read Truly Devious and its sequel, The Hand on the Wall, The Vanishing Stare, with my book club, but I haven't read the 3rd book, The Hand on the Wall. So I am going to reread the first 2 books, so I can read the 3rd one for the first time. These books are also young adult. They're set in 2 timelines. One is a current timeline, the other is in 1936. These books are set at a special school where artists and creators are all welcome. The main character from this time frame, her name is Stevie, and she has been studying this crime that occurred at Ellingham Academy in 1936, where a girl named Dottie, who was a school there, actually was murdered. Stevie gets invited to attend the school, and her goal of being there is to solve this crime back from 1936. The last book on my TBR list that is from my Kindle specifically is called The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. This is a trilogy of books that I downloaded a few years back. So see, I told you guys I download stuff and then I don't get around to reading them forever. What I remember about this is that girls are being kidnapped and kind of kept by some kooky kind of guy, I guess, who kidnaps and collects girls. And then that crime is found out, and then there's an investigation about what's going on. That's kind of what I remember about these books, so I have been meaning to get around to them for a while, and so why not this year? Almost last on the list that I've made today is To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, I read this back, I think, when I was in high school, so I've just been thinking about it, about the story, and I've decided that I it's time I should reread it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that this year sometime. Things I remember about this book is the main character, what's her name? Scout, right? The main character, Scout, her dad's like a lawyer, and this is set old-timey around the Depression era, maybe? I'm trying to remember back to high school, guys. I'm really sorry. It's been a minute. Anyway, there's some sort of a crime, a rape or a murder or something that happens, and this small town they live in, you know, as the trial and things proceed, just kind of the upset around it. Also Scout and, you know, some of the different people in town, just her interactions with them. This is probably a book really familiar to most of you. I know that a lot of times it's read in school. It's just been such a long time that I don't really have all the details clear anymore, and so I thought, hey, guess what? I should read that again. I do remember enjoying this book and thinking it was good, so I'm excited to go ahead and revisit it, and yeah, that's it. Okay, the last book on my list is The Legend of Greg. The only reason it's the last book is because I ran out of room on my paper, and don't mind my bad handwriting. So The Legend of Greg, a series of epic failures by Chris Rylander. I bought this book because it sounded really cool and I thought the cover was interesting, like the name, everything kind of just drew me to it. I was at the store. I think we were picking out a birthday present for one of my kids' friends having a birthday. Anyway, so I bought this for them because I thought they would really love it. And I started reading it aloud to my son, my youngest, and I was thinking that he would get really hooked by the book and he would get really excited, and then I would just be like, okay, well, if you want to read it, go ahead, but I'm not going to read it for you right now. And then he would just dive right in and like just read it away. Well, that didn't happen. He refused to keep reading it on his own. He just wanted me to. So this has been sitting partly read for, I think, like a year and a half, 2 years or something like that now. Well, he probably would actually read it nowadays because he's finally getting in to his reading groove. He's finally finding that love that pushes him not just to finish one book, but to actually keep on reading more books. So I'm excited. But anyway, I'm going to read this book for myself. I'm going to start at the beginning and go through it. This book is about Greg, which you probably figured out. This is a middle grade, I believe a middle grade book. It's set in Chicago, and Greg and his family are unlucky. Every Thursday is a very unlucky day for their family, and it goes on about that. Greg is a middle schooler. He is obsessed with puns. He has one best friend, and it's just, they're absolutely just funny and fun reads. He finds out in the first little bit that he's actually a dwarf. So the way that goes about is quite amusing. I'm excited to actually finish this book and see where it goes because it was really enjoyable, entertaining, amusing. Definitely something a young person would enjoy, like a young middle grade aged person, 8 to 12, but also I was really enjoying reading it. Yeah, I'm excited to finish it and finally see what happens at the end. Okay guys, well that is my TBR that I've kind of set for myself here for 2021. Again, I'm just going to remind you, I'm sure you're going to keep track of me, and I'm going to keep track of my book, but anyway, this is a fluid list, right? It might come and go. I'm not going to necessarily read them in order. I'm just going to do whatever I want. 14 books that I might or might not get to reading this year, but I hope to. I'll kind of let you guys know as I go through them. If you have any absolutely must reads, let me know. Put them in the comments below and I will check them out for sure. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks, bye.